Okay, in this series of videos we're going to be looking at the foundation tier, and it's the sample assessment materials for Edexcel for non-calculator in this particular playlist. Now if you want to download the paper, if you follow the link below in the description, you'll be able to download and have a go at the questions for yourself. I suggest that you do. Each of these videos is going to be about 20 minutes in length, and the whole idea is that you keep stopping and starting the video, have a go at each of the questions yourself, and then compare your solution. Okay, so let's move on then to question number 1, and this particular question deals with putting some decimals in order. Okay, now sometimes these particular questions can be a little bit tricky, so you just need to be very careful in the way that you do it. The way I tend to do it is I tend to make sure that I've got the same number of decimal places after the decimal point. Now the reason I do that is because it's a little bit easier then for me to read, because if I ignore the decimal point I can clearly see that 100 here is the lowest number. So the first number that I'm going to say is the smallest number is 0.1. Okay, then the next one is going to be 106. Hopefully you can see that okay, so I'm going to make that 0.106. The next one is going to be 0.160, which is this number here, so 0.16, and the last one is going to be 610 if you like, so it's going to be 61, so 0.61. Okay, now the benefit with that is that if you put them into 3 decimal places, it just makes it a little bit easier to read. Obviously you're not changing the value because 0 hasn't got a value at all. Okay, so let's move on then to the second question, which is write 0.037 as a fraction. Well, you have to remember with this that we're looking at the thousandth place. So this is the 10th, 100th and 1000th. So what we're saying here is there are 37 thousandths, okay, and the way we write that is 37 over 1000. So the answer to this question is 37 over 1000. Now you don't need to change that, that's perfectly fine. They're only asking you to write it down as a fraction. Okay, let's move on then to question number 3. Now in question number 3, you need to write down the 20th odd number. There are ways in which you can do this, but frankly the easiest way is just simply to write down all the odd numbers in order. It's going to take me a few minutes to do that, but basically if you follow this through you'll be able to then work out that the 20th odd number is going to be, well, what have we got here? So far we've got first, second, third, fourth, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, well that's going to be 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20th. So actually the 20th odd number is going to be 39. Okay, there are ways in which you can do that, but frankly that's the easiest way of doing it, is just write down each of these. Now hopefully you've been able to have a go at all of those questions, and that should give you 3 marks and you're off to a really good start. Okay, let's look then at question number 4. And the question number 4 asks you to write down all the factors of 20. Okay, well factors basically means the numbers that will divide into 20. Okay, so let's just think about that. The numbers that will divide into 20 are 1, 2, 4, 5, 10 and 20. Remember that 1 is a factor of 20 because it will divide into it 20 times, and 20 is a factor of 20 because it will divide into 20 once. So the factors of 20 is 1, 2, 4, 5, 10 and 20. Okay, and that's 2 marks, so it's well worthwhile making sure that you get all of those factors. Okay, the next one is the first kind of word problem that we're going to come across. Now, it's a 3 marker, so it's going to take a little bit of working out and also a little bit of understanding of what we're trying to do. Okay, the key issue with it is this bit here. So Tanya needs to buy chocolate bars for all the children in year 7, and each of the 130 children get 1 chocolate bar. So in other words, what we're saying is that there are 130 children in year 7. One of the techniques of dealing with word problems is actually just to look at the first sentence and see if you can do something with it. And what I've done with it is I've realised that there are 130 children in year 7. So let's move on to the next one, and it says there are 8 chocolate bars in 1 packet. Okay, so if there's 8 chocolate bars in 1 packet, we can work out how many chocolate bars that Tanya will need to buy, or packets of chocolate bars that Tanya will need to buy. The way we can do that, we can say that if there's 8 chocolate bars in each packet, if we find out how many packets are required by dividing by 8, that will tell us. Okay, so this really is a short division. Now again, there are different techniques of doing this. This is the way I would do it. You might have a slightly different method, and that's perfectly fine. I've no issue with that. However, if you're not sure about how to do short division, it is well worthwhile getting to grips with it. If you have a look at some of the videos on my channel, that will give you some more examples. It's very useful, and it will come up in quite a lot of exams. The way we do that is we say how many 8s are there in 1? Well, there's none, so I'm going to put a 0 there and pass that 1 on. Then I'm going to say how many 8s are there in 13? Well, there's 1. Okay, and then there's actually 5 left over, because 13 take away 8 is 5. So then how many 8s are there in 50? Well, 6 8s are 48. Okay, so you need to know your times tables if you're doing short division, and you've got a remainder of 2. Okay, well, those 2 chocolate bars have to come from somewhere. Okay, so what we're saying is that we've got 16 packets plus some extra, so actually Tanya will need to buy 17 packets of chocolate bars. Okay, hopefully that's all right for you. Please do practice short division. It will come up fairly frequently. Question 6 also is quite a popular question as well. This is where you have a number line of some sort and you're asked to mark probability on a number line. So this particular one is a dice. Now if you can imagine that if you've got a dice, you've got the numbers 1 to 6, so the probability that it will land on an odd number is half the time, because you've got number 1, number 3, number 5. So there's 3 numbers out of the whole 6 numbers. So that's going to be 3 out of 6, which is a half. Okay? And then it says, on the probability scale, mark with a cross the probability that the dice will land on a number less than 5. And this is an important thing. It's less than 5. It's not including 5. So if we have a look at all of these numbers, that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay, well the probability it'll land on less than 5 is actually that point here, because it's not including 5. Okay, hopefully that's all right for you. A little bit of a tricky one just to understand what it is they're asking you to do. Okay, let's move on then to question number 7. Now with question number 7, we're being asked to work out Sally's hourly rate of pay, and guess what? It's another short division. It's exactly the same as the previous question number 5. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, short division is well worthwhile getting to grips with, because what we're saying is if she earns £60 and she worked for 8 hours, that's going to be 60 divided by 8. Okay, so the number of hours that she worked was 8 and she earned £60. Okay, so if we do that, we're going to have 8 into 60. Okay, So let's just have a look at that. Well, 8 into 6 we can't do, so I'm going to pass that 6 over here and say 8 into 60. Well, 7 8s are 56, and then I've got 4 left over. And you'll note here I've duplicated the decimal point, okay? So I've left that as £60, and then I've made sure I've got a decimal point here because there's going to be some pence left over, because 8 into 40 is 5, and then 8 into 0 is nothing. Okay, so in this particular scenario, Sally's hourly rate of pay is 7.50, which is £7.50 per hour. Okay, hope that's all right for you. Okay, so next one is question number 8. Work out 15% of £80. Well, the easiest and most common way of doing this is to say, well, I know that 10% of £80 equals 8. So if I know 10%, what I can do is I can use that information to work out 5%, because I can just half it. So 5% of £80, half of 10 is 5, so therefore half of 8 is 4. Okay, so if I then want to work out 15%, what I can do is I can say, well, that plus that is 15%, so therefore that plus that must also be 15%. So 15% of 80 is going to be 12. Okay, hope that's all right. Fairly standard method, again, well worthwhile practicing for these sorts of exams. Let's move on then to question number 9. Okay, there's 3 beads and 1 blue bead in a jar. Bead is taken from the random from the jar. What's the probability the bead is blue? Okay, well, the question to ask then is, how many beads are there in the jar? Well, if there are 3 red and there are 1 blue, which is exactly the same as the text there, then there must be 4 beads in total in the jar. Okay, so the probability of picking out a blue bead is going to be 1 out of 4. Okay, because there's 4 beads in total and 1 of them happens to be blue, so it's 1 out of 4. So remember, when you write a fraction, one of the ways in which you can pronounce the fraction is by saying 1, and this line here means out of, and in this case it's 4. Okay, so 1 out of the 4 beads is blue, and therefore the probability is 1 out of 4. Okay, all right, let's have a look at question number 10, and we can approach that perhaps in a very similar way. There's only black pens and green pens in a box. Ratio of black to number of green is 2 to 5. Okay, so what we're saying is there's black pens and there's green pens, okay, and the ratio is 2 to 5. So in other words, there are 7 pens in the box. Okay, so if there's 7 pens in the box, the probability or the fraction of the number of pens being black is 2 out of the total of 7. So again, 2 out of 7. So exactly we did the same as we did in the previous question, where we read it as 1 out of 4. We can read this as 2 black pens out of 7 pens in total. So that's going to be a fraction of 2 out of 7. And I would try to encourage you to get used to reading fractions in that way, rather than reading this as 2/7 or 1/4. Sometimes it can be very helpful, particularly dealing with maths, if you read it as something out of something else. Okay, so let's move on then to question number 11. Question number 11 is quite a popular question with these sorts of exams, another fairly popular one. And basically she's got 3 different tiles to make a number. How many different numbers can Sally make? Okay, well, the first number she can make is the number she's got, which is 1, 2, 3. And then the easiest way of doing this is to leave this 1 in place and then swap over the next 2 tiles, so you actually get 1, 3, 2. Okay, and then let's do the same with the number 2. I'm going to put 2 in that place, but then I'm going to put the 1 and the 3 together, and then I'm going to swap it around. Okay, And then exactly the same with the number 3. Okay, I'm going to put the 1 and the 2 together, and then I'm going to swap it around. Okay, and what you'll find with that is those are the numbers that Sally can make with these tiles. Okay, let's move on then to a question which is number 12. I am conscious of the time on the video. It's now about 15 minutes. We're going to aim for about 20 to 30 minutes depending upon where we can stop with this particular one, but about 20 minutes, so about another 5 minutes to go. Hopefully you've been working through these and following them through. Okay, so let's have a look then at question number 12. And question number 12 is this kind of pattern recognition. So the whole idea is that you say how many triangles are there in pattern number 7. Well, if we look at pattern number 1, there's that many triangles, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pattern number 2, there's 6, 7, 8, and pattern number 3. Okay, well what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to write that out. I'm going to say in pattern number 1, there is 6. In pattern number 2, if I count them up, I've got 8. In pattern number 3, I've got 8, 9, 10. In pattern number 4, well, it follows then that what I've got is an additional 2 triangles for every new pattern. So in pattern number 4, hopefully you can see that I'm adding 2 each time. So in pattern number 4, I can say 12. In pattern number 5, I can say 14. In pattern number 6, I can say 16. In pattern number 7, which is the one I'm looking for, I can say 18. Okay, so the number of triangles that are in pattern number 7 is actually going to be 18 triangles. Okay. Right, let's have a look at the next one, and it says Charlie says there are 4 rectangles in pattern number 3. Let's just check that. So if I go back to pattern number 3, you can see at the top here there's 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles in pattern number 3. And he's also then saying therefore in pattern number 6 there will be 8 rectangles. Okay, well I'm going to do what I did before, is I'm actually going to check that. So in pattern number 1, if I look at the diagram here, I've got 2 rectangles. In pattern number 2, I've got 3 rectangles. In pattern number 3, I've got 4 rectangles, and you can see here it's actually going up by +1 each time. Okay, so if I want to work out how many rectangles there will be in pattern number 6, I'm going to just carry that on. So 4, there's going to be 5, 5, there's going to be 6, and 6, there's going to be 7. Okay, so actually no, Charlie is wrong. Okay, there are is wrong. There are 7. Okay. All right, so I think sometimes with these type of questions, it's a good idea to kind of work your way through just methodically and show to the examiner that you're working through in a way that kind of works for you and helps you to demonstrate that you understand the question. Okay, so let's move on then to question number 13. And question number 13, this one, the key word, there is a key word with this one, which is the word estimate. Okay, and I've seen a few students that have tackled this particular question and have tried to calculate it, and that's going to be so difficult because basically you're dealing with £19.95 and £395. So with the word estimate, it seems to make sense that we can actually, rather than £19.95, we can write that as £20. And rather than 395 tickets, we can write that as 400 tickets. Okay, and then it says work out an estimate for the amount of money Paul gave to charity. Well, let's just work out first how much he actually sold. Okay, so what did he make in terms of selling? Well, he sold 400 tickets, each at £20, therefore he sold £8,000 worth of tickets. I bet he was busy. Okay, all right. Now it cost him £6,000 to actually presumably produce the tickets and employ the staff and advertise and all that sort of stuff. So if it cost him £6,000, then it means the profit that he made would have been £2,000. Now, if he gave that money to charity, then he would have given £2,000 as an estimate to charity. And then it says, is your answer an underestimate or an overestimate? Well, it's actually an overestimate, just very slightly. And the reason it's an overestimate is because the tickets and the number of tickets and the price have both been rounded up. Okay. Alrighty, so that takes us now to 20 minutes. I think we'll just push this a little bit further to maybe just another 5 minutes. Okay, and let's move on then to question number 14, which is becoming quite a popular sort of question, certainly when I'm involved in tutoring, because it deals with pie charts, and really all pie chart is just a representation of a whole bunch of information. Now in this particular case we're being asked to draw a pie chart to represent these apple trees, okay, and these pear trees. Okay, so first, before we need to do that, we've got 45 apple trees represented by this pictogram, okay, and we need to fill out this key. Well, that's probably, it's just a little bit tough here, but what we're saying is that if there's 45 trees represented by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 triangles, well, in that case, each tree must be 45 divided by 9, which is 5. Okay, so let's just check that. For pear trees, we've got 20 trees being represented by 4 triangles, so 20 divided by 4 is also 5. So therefore, each of these triangles must be 5 trees. Okay, and that would give you 1 mark. We're then being asked to take this information and construct a pie chart. Okay, well, the important thing about pie charts is that we have to figure out how much it is per tree. So the piece of information that you need to know is you need to know how many trees. Well, in this case there's 90. And you need to also know the number of degrees in a circle is 360. Okay, so what we're saying is if we have 360 degrees and there's 90 trees, if we divide one by the other, it means that each tree must equal 4 degrees. Okay, it doesn't matter how many of apple, pear and plum there are, but we're saying there's 90 altogether. So therefore, out of that 90, if you've got 360 degrees in the full circle, then each tree must be 4 degrees. Okay, so that means then that if I multiply 45 by 4, I get 180 degrees. If I multiply 20 by 4, I get 80 degrees. And if I multiply 25 by 4, I get 100 degrees. Okay, now there's a little tip here just to make sure this is correct. If I add up those 3 numbers, I should get 360 degrees. And if you do that just at the side, so if you just make sure you've got 180 plus 80 plus 100, and I'm very aware your calculation might be different to mine, but if I add that up, I get 360, so I know I must be right. Okay, now I haven't got a protractor. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sketch this. If you're in the exam and you haven't got a protractor yourself, do please ask for one, because they have to make them available to you. So please do ask for protractors to make sure that you've got those around. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, apple is 180 degrees, which I know is a straight line. Okay, so this section over here will be apple, and if I measure that around there, that would actually be 180 degrees. Okay, similarly then, if I look at the pear tree, now I'm just going to work so slightly backwards here. 80 degrees is just slightly less than 90 degrees. So if I had that as a right angle, that would be 90 degrees. So 80 degrees is actually slightly less than, it's actually 10 degrees less than 90 degrees. So this would be pair. Okay, and this is really just an estimate. If you have a protractor, you'll be able to do this a lot more accurately. And they have actually asked you to draw an accurate pie chart, so they will mark you on this. It is a 3-mark question. I'm probably only going to get 2 marks for this because I'm not entirely sure that I'm entirely accurate, but it's fairly good representation for the video. So plumb then should be the final bit, and if you measure that, that should be 100 degrees in there. Okay, I hope that's okay for you. We're going to stop the video there at 25 minutes. So that's going to take us through to question number 14, or the end of question number 14. And we're going to start the video at question number 15 in the rest of this playlist, and that will take you through for another 20 or 25 minutes in the next video. I hope it's been useful to you. Please do subscribe to the site, add a comment below if you're not sure about anything. There's lots of other videos on the channel, and if you're not sure, please do also have a look at some of the other videos, and I look forward to seeing you inside the next video.